Okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for helping in. It's another day. Thank you so much for helping in once again. My name is Ryan Tuminyema. I'm a third year medical student studying in Nigeria, Federal University of Technology, College of Medicine, Owerri in Nigeria. And apart from my medical studies, I'm also proficient freelance medical content writer. And today I have an amazing guest speaker. Hey, Carrie, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes. Hi. So I'm Cali. I'm your big sister MD on all social media. I am a fourth year medical student in Spain, originally from the States. And you can find me on any social media at Big Sister MD.
Amazing. So, Carrie, I have a lot of questions for you to answer for the public. Are you ready?
I'm super ready. I'm super excited. Let's do it.
Yeah. The first question goes this way. Can you share your experience, as a fourth year medical student, international medical student, and how your journey differs from other medical students out there? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no worries. So my journey as an international medical student has been very different. So I moved to Spain at 17 from the States by myself. And I didn't get accepted right away into medicine. So I started at biotechnology and I hated it. And so I dropped out and then went to another medical school and had to leave after one semester because of some family issues. And then I reapplied to medicine again for a third time and got into the school that I'm in now. So honestly, if you don't get into medicine the first time, you're not the only one. Don't give up. If that's something that you want to do, you'll find a way to do it, like as I have. Um, and so I study in Spanish, which is my second language. And that has been complicated. Not the most complicated though. Like I think the most difficult part of being an international medical student is like the culture shock of learning how people study in other countries and how the education system is in different countries. So that was something that was really difficult for me to adjust to as an American that's really focused on like projects and homework and like interviews and stuff like that, like much more like little tasks and stuff like that throughout the day. And in Europe, they're much more about like memorization and pass fail and it's a much more difficult system, at least for me to adjust to. So that was, as an international medical student, that was very different. And and I decided after 4 years to take a gap year, which is what I'm doing right now. So I stopped my medical studies. I talked to my school. They actually recommended that I take a gap year. And I talked to my school about it, and they are holding my spot so I can go back in September. And I'm taking this year to work on content creation and mental health. Um, and I'm hopefully going to be working for like a pharmaceutical company so I can see a different side of medicine and just using this time to really work on getting unburnt out. Like I was so burnt out from medical school, as I'm sure we all have at some point, like going full speed ahead and not really taking any breaks. So it's been great to have a break and take a gap year.
That's amazing, Kate. I'm a bit curious about your journey, to med school. You're an American and you're from the US originally. So I'm kind of like curious, what gave you the incision to make that move you made from the US down to Spain? Why didn't you study in your country?
Yeah, I get that question a lot on my DMs. So let's talk about it. So I decided to go to Spain because number one, I'm not really the biggest fan of the United States as a whole. There wasn't really anywhere that I wanted to live in the States. So that was the first point. And the second point was that in the States, you have to do 4 years undergraduate degree, and then you have to apply to medicine to take the MCAT, and then you have to do 4 years of medicine and then another 4, 5, 6 years of residency. So in total, it's like 13 to 15-year journey, lots of money. Like medical school is $50,000 a year minimum. Um, and then I started looking at Spain and Europe in general. And in Europe, you can start medical school at 18, right after high school. So that was like a huge incentive for me. That's something that was very positive. And then I looked at the prices. And the prices are anywhere, if you go to a public university in Spain, they can be anywhere from 800 euros a year to like 1,400 euros a year. To the private universities are anywhere from 10 to 20,000 euros a year. So less than half. Like if you go to a public university, it's an absolute fraction of the cost. Um, and it's a 6-year journey instead of 13 years. So for all of those reasons, I decided to come to Spain. I also have family in Spain, and I came here on vacation and just loved it. I love the country. I love the food. I love the weather. I love the city. I love the transport. Like everything about it just felt like home. And it was somewhere that I was really excited to stay for the next, decade or so of my life. Um, and so for all of you listening, I would just say if you're thinking about studying abroad, it's really important to consider, the program, of course. It was like, how many years is it? How expensive is it? All of those types of things. But it's also really important to consider the country. Like, what's the weather like? What are the people like? Is it somewhere that you want to be for potentially the next 10 or 20 years of your life? Because that's really important. Like, it's not all about medicine. Like you don't live in a bubble. Like you're going to be studying medicine, but you also need to make friends, and you have to go out and like meet people, and what is it like working in that country and stuff like that. So I had to consider kind of like all of those things. And I unfortunately was so focused on Spain that I didn't really look at other options that maybe would have been better for me as an American. So now when people ask me this question, I tell them about like, have you thought about the UK? Have you thought about going to Ireland? Have you thought about going to Poland? Have you thought about, like why do you want to go to Spain? Is it just because of the cost, or is it just because of the eight like the the 6-year program? Have you considered other options? Because now I'm looking at doing my residency in Ireland because I'm not really happy with the way that the Spanish system is. So I think it's really important. Yeah, I mean, I'm a really international person, just bopping around. So I would really think that it's important to consider all assets and all facets of not just medical school, but what is residency like in that country, and what is the food like, and the weather and all that kind of stuff. So
Amazing, amazing, amazing. That's an amazing journey, first far. And I believe that you're pushing further, to achieve your dream. And thank you so much for saying that first. So, what caused you to take a gap year? You
yeah,
know,
so
a gap year
let
break. So, I studied medicine. So, tell us, how does it affect your thoughts about medicine?
yes, great question. So I think a gap year is something that's so taboo and so difficult to talk about, because if you study medicine, you're obviously super driven. You're obviously super smart. You're obviously somebody that wants to help people. You're obviously somebody that's, taking sacrificing so much of your life to study, to go to school, to, all of that stuff. So that type of personality is not really somebody that's thinking about like, oh, let me take a break. Just in general, whether it's over the summer or, over winter break. Like medical school students are not really the type of personality that would value their own well-being over the well-being of others or over their goals. So that was me. I spent 4 years sacrificing my summers doing like Coursera courses to get more education, or trying to reach out, starting an Instagram, like doing all sorts of stuff to try and like push my career forward. And over winter break, I was obviously studying for exams, or if I wasn't studying for exams, I was getting ready for the next semester. And so I spent 4 years of my life without ever taking a break. And that is very, very costly on your mental health, because if you're not taking a break, um, I mean, even on like the micro scale, like during the week, I would spend 5 days out of the week in the house, not leaving during studying time, just studying, spending 10 hours a day on my computer, doing PowerPoints, doing slides, whatever. And I wouldn't even see the light of day for 5 or 6 days at a time. And I thought that was great. I thought that was something to brag about. Like, oh, look at me, I'm such a good student. I like haven't seen the light of day in 5 days. And what I didn't realize is that I was really spending my mental health Like, as far as how much mental health I had in the bank, it was going all the way down, 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 getting down to the negatives, getting into the red. And it wasn't until I started seeing the effects on my medical school, like I was failing exams. I was, having to go to therapy more often. I was having to start medication. I was having to, take weekends off and stuff like that. So I was really starting to see the effects on medical school, which is really unfortunate. But it took me until that point to realize, like, hey, I need a break. Like, I'm not going to make it to the end of medical school if I keep going like this. Like, I need to stop. I need to focus on myself. I need to, take a walk. I need to go outside. I need to eat. I haven't eaten all day. Um, and so it was something that I started talking about with my therapist at uni. And for those of you who don't know, at pretty much every single university in the world, you have a psychology team. So if you're feeling burnt out, if you're feeling like, you're falling behind with your studies or you're not doing as well as you want to, or you're really struggling, find your psychology team in your university and reach out to them. So that's what I did. And I started talking with my psychologist and the therapist in my uni. And she was like, Callie, what's going on? we can't work at this pace. We got to do something about this. And so then I started exploring the idea of, first I started taking less classes. And then that still wasn't enough because I was still studying a bunch and I was still, feeling burnt out and feeling exhausted. Um, and so then we started talking about the idea of, okay, what if we take a semester off? And I was like, okay, well, no, I don't want to. I don't want to wait even longer to graduate. I don't want to add extra time onto my medical school career. Like, what am I even going to do with myself? I don't even know what to do if I'm not studying. Like I immediately I was like, no. And then I started realizing, okay, I'm not sleeping well. I'm not eating well. I'm not performing well in medical school. I'm not, like I'm losing out on my social life. I don't have a good relationship with my family right now. Like everything in my life and all aspects was like not doing well. And so then I started to consider it more. And the more that we talked about it, the more I was like, okay, this is definitely something that I need to really consider. So I talked about it with my therapist and with the school, and they were like, listen, we think you would really benefit from taking a year off or a semester off or whatever you want to do, but we think that you need some time for yourself. And so after about a year and a half of considering a gap year, I finally came around to the idea and decided to take the gap year. So they held my spot for me, and I'll go back in September. And I'll tell you that it's one of the most difficult decisions that I've ever had to make in medical school. And in September, like this September of 2023, I don't know what year we're in. When I saw all of my friends going back to school and starting university and going into 5th year and almost finishing and having exams and stuff, it was super difficult for me to watch them continue and feel like I was being left out. And I felt like, did I make the right decision? Is this the right thing for me? And it's now January. So I've now had September, October, November, December, January. I've had 5 months off, and I'm the happiest I've ever been. I feel so relaxed. I feel so focused. I feel so productive. I feel very successful. Like, I feel like this has been absolutely the best thing for me. And it's something that was really difficult for me to accept, and something that's been I've been really ashamed of, like, oh, I'm not strong enough to be a doctor, or maybe I don't have what it takes. And it's really been taking me talking to other doctors and saying, like, other doctors are like, oh, that's amazing. I wish I could have taken a gap year. Or I took a gap year between medical school and residency, or I took a gap year between college and medical school. Or, I'm thinking about taking a gap year between residency year blank and blank. And I didn't realize how common it is and how unshameful it is, how normal, and how, it's not something to be ashamed of or to be afraid of. It doesn't mean that you're less than. It doesn't mean that you're not good enough. It doesn't mean that you're not strong enough. It means that you're in touch with yourself and you understand that this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. This is your whole life. And you have your entire life to study medicine and to become a doctor. And so if you take a year or a semester or whatever out in between, it's really not that big of a deal. And nobody's going to judge you except for yourself. Nobody's going to think less of you. Nobody's going to think that you can't do it. And you're going to come out so much stronger. and so much happier. And that has been truly my experience. So
That's amazing, Kelly. Thank you so much for giving us those no nice and amazing nuggets for the audience to, grab
yeah,
something off it. And I believe that the audience will greatly appreciate this video. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
yeah,
So
of
can you
course.
tell us about the difficulties international students encounter while working, in healthcare in other countries, in your own perspective?
Yeah. So one of the first difficulties that you're going to have as an international student getting into medical school is going to be your visa. This is like an ongoing struggle um, throughout your entire medical school career. So there are different types of visas. And if you are looking at studying internationally, please send me a message or contact a lawyer before you get a visa, because some visas have path to citizenship and some don't. So I had a student visa, which does not have a path to citizenship for 3 years. And then after 3 years, I was like, oh, I've been in the country for 3 years. Surely I have more right to become a citizen than somebody else who just got here. And I talked to a lawyer and they were like, actually, no, you have to change your visa. You have to go back to your home country. You have to apply again. You have to start all over again. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, why did nobody tell me this before? Um, so I had to change my visa, and now I am becoming a European citizen. I get my passport next month, so I'm super excited about that. And that's one of the biggest struggles that you're going to face, and something that people don't really talk about. So it's like the hidden difficulty in being a medical student, an international student, because you have your visa to apply to medical school, and then once you get into medical school, and then after you're done, when you want to work, you have to have a work visa as well. So it really adds like a lot of extra hurdles to being a student and being a professional. Um, if you're from a different country that's not a European country and you're applying as a European citizen. Then there's the language barrier, which if you're going to a different country that doesn't speak, I'm an English native. If I go somewhere like Spain that speaks Spanish, there's obviously that hurdle of the language barrier. So I tell people that there is a language scale which starts at A1 and ends at C2. And the median that I would recommend for you to start medical school in a foreign country with a foreign language is a B2. So that's like you can understand conversation, you can read and write, you can speak very well and communicate well, because you're going to have to do presentations, you're going to have to do essays, you're going to have to speak to patients, you're going to have to listen to lectures every single day. And so you really want to go in with a confidence in your foreign language, knowing that you can communicate to patients, you can understand what's being told to you, you can read an exam and understand like the trick questions, because exams are difficult in whatever language that are comfortable with. And then when you add in the extra barrier of having a foreign language and it's multiple choice, and some of the there's like trick questions and you really need to understand like every single word, it's super important to feel very confident in your second language. So there's that. Then there is the difficulty of being away from your family, which can be very difficult depending on how far away you are. It's something that you need to that you have to take into account as far as like financially. You're going to have to pay for trips to go home and see your family. You're going to want to be somewhere by an airport because you're going to have to fly home. You want to think of like geographically somewhere that's maybe, not too far away from your family, or if you've never lived away from home, it's going to be a big shock. Like there's a lot of things to consider in that way. And also understand that you're going to be really busy during, winter break, Christmas, stuff like that. So there was times when I didn't see my family for a year, 2 years, 3 years, because of COVID, because of exams, because of, doing internships, because of doing stuff. So it's like a really, really big sacrifice that you really have to think about. Like, are you good with long distance relationships? Like having all of your friends be somewhere else? Like, are you comfortable having your family be somewhere else? Do you have their financial support? Do you have their emotional support? Do you have their mental support? Like all of those types of things um, is super important to consider, because you really are going to be by yourself. alone. And so you have to really be comfortable with that and feel confident in your ability to take care of yourself and to keep up your relationships long distance, and stuff like that.
Amazing. Amazing. That was so sensational, Cali. Thank you so much for explaining that for us. Thank you so much. So, how do you balance academic commitments in your med school and also personal development during your gap year? How did you do that?
Right. So this is something that's new to me. So I haven't been balancing personal development and medical school at all, which is part of the reason why I need a gap year. I've been focused mainly on just medical school, graduating, passing my exams, whatever. And so the way that I'm doing it now is I am really focusing on my mental health. So that means for me, therapy, getting outside, connecting with my friends, seeing my family. I went back this summer to see my family after 3 years. So that was super, super crazy. And I'm still keeping in touch with my friends from university and my professors and, all that kind of stuff. So I still have like a toe in university kind of life. But right now, my main focus is getting better and having my mental health be front and center. Uh-oh, I think we lost you. Oh, wait, you're back. Okay. So, yeah, that's what I would say. I would say right now my balance is more towards mental health and personal development, whereas before it was all kind of medical school.
That's so important to take good care of your mental health because nothing is worth your mental health. Even your med school, whatever you're doing, it doesn't really worth your mental health. So prioritize your mental health is really important. Thanks so much for putting that out to us. And do you encounter or did you encounter cultural differences in your and how did they affect your mental health?
Yeah. So there were a lot of cultural differences when I moved to Spain. I think a lot of them were for the better. So, for example, in the United States, we have a culture because our medical system is so expensive and privatized that, if my brother, for example, broke his leg, and instead of calling an ambulance, which would be a normal thing to do, he called his friend to drive him to the hospital because an ambulance is like $10,000 and he didn't have the money to pay for the ambulance. And so he had his friend drive him while he was holding his broken leg to the hospital to go get treated. And all of the treatment, the MRIs, the surgery, everything was around $20,000, $30,000 that he had to pay out of pocket because he didn't have insurance. And it financially bankrupted him. And so I grew up in a culture like that where it's very extreme. The doctor is something that is like almost feared. Like you don't go to the doctor unless you're dying or bleeding or, like you really, really have to go to the doctor. Like you find any reason, go to the pharmacy, go on YouTube, go on Facebook, go whatever, find some essential oil. Like don't go to the doctor. So that's the kind of culture that I grew up in. And then I went to Spain, and Spain has public health care that's free for everybody. And they go to the doctor if they have a cold. In America, if you're very rich, you could go to the doctor if you have a cold, but if you're a normal person, that's like a huge waste of money. Why would you go to the doctor if you have a cold? And so I encountered kind of like the opposite problem when I started working in the hospital here, which is that their emergency rooms are overflowing because people come in for all sorts of things. If they have any question, they go to the doctor. If they, need reassurance or if they have, like any sort of minor sickness or illness or whatever, they go to the doctor and ask for help. So that means that you see patients really early on in their diseases. You don't miss diagnoses as quickly or as often because you're seeing the patient more frequently. You're able to diagnose things earlier on in their span of evolution, whereas in the States you see things sort of at the middle or end of their diagnostic time frame. In Spain and Europe, you see them way earlier because patients will come in a lot sooner. And it's sort of interesting how the doctors complain about like the opposite problem. Like, oh my God, people come in for everything and, nothing's wrong with you. Go home, take a paracetamol, whatever. Like, it's fine. You're fine. Go home. As in the States, it's like, oh my God, why didn't you come in sooner? Why didn't you come in 3 months ago? Like, this is really serious. So that was culturally very different. And as far as my mental health, the thing that's been the most difficult for me culture wise is the medical school system. So in the States, obviously, we have, as I mentioned before, like essays and projects and interviews and all sorts of stuff where they evaluate you on different facets of your personality and your ability as a student. Whereas Spain, you have one exam that is 100% of your grade at the end of the semester, and it's pass fail. So you have to get above a certain grade point average in order to continue to the next year. It's very normal to fail. It's very normal to have to retake exams. It's very normal to have to retake semesters or classes. And that is something that I had never experienced in my life. Like as a medical student, like if you get into medical school, that means you're a good student. You've done really well. Like academics is something that's easy to you. Like you're really smart, like you do well in a setting, like a classroom setting. So to go from that to being like the big kahuna at my high school, doing really well for myself, getting good grades, not having to study that much, not having to work that hard. I was like, medical school is going to be a breeze. Start medical school, fail immediately. Fail the next exam. No, you get a 2 out of 10. You get a 3 out of 10. Like I've never gotten worse grades in my life. I was so embarrassed. And I didn't realize until then that so much of my personality is formed around being a good student. So much of my personality is formed around being smart, being, able to understand information and do well and, like succeed. Like that was something that was so important to me. And so I went through like an identity crisis at the beginning of medical school. I was like, am I smart? I thought I was smart, but now I'm in medical school and everybody's smart. So like, am I even smart? Am I stupid? Like, have I been living my whole life not knowing that I'm actually an idiot? Like, is that really what's going on? And so I had a complete identity crisis. Like, I don't even know who I am anymore. Like, am I intelligent? Am I good enough for this? Like, am I able to be a doctor? Am I, who am I? And so that was the most difficult part of medical school. And it wasn't until I started talking to older students who said, oh my God, I know. I failed that class too. It gets easier. Or like, of course you're smart. Of course you can do it. Like just sharing in that feeling of like, yes, I failed too. And look at me. Like I'm now in my final year of medical school, or I made it and I failed. I made it and I had to retake this year. I made it and I take a gap year, all that kind of stuff. So it really took a lot of reassurance for me to build up my confidence again in who I am as a person.
That's wow. Kelly, that was so deep. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I believe I learned something from what you just said. And if the host could learn something from this, I believe that the audience too will learn something of it. So thank you so much for that, Kelly.
Yeah, of course.
So what advice do you give other international students who are considering taking a gap year off to continue their education? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think now that I'm taking a gap year, I think that everybody should take a gap year at some point in their medical career. Whether that's after you finish high school and you take a year before you start medical school, which would be great. If you take a gap year in between medical school, in between the 4 to 6 to 8 years of medical school, however long it takes you, if you need to stop and take a break, then that would be good. When you finish medical school, going to residency, if you want to kind of like celebrate, hey, I did it before I start working, I want to go travel around the world, or I want to see my family, or I want to, just like sit on the beach for a month and like not think about, mitochondrias and bones and patients and all that kind of stuff. Great. And if you need to take a break in residency because you want to start a family or you want to, just take a break or relax or whatever, I think that's great too. So I think that we need to normalize stopping, because if you don't stop, you will go from 18 to 40 without ever taking a break. And you won't realize until you're all the way at the end of the cycle of like, oh my God, I'm a doctor now. Now what? I think so much of us are like thinking like, oh, I just want to be doctor. I just want to be a doctor. I just want to get through this next semester. I just want to get through this next year. I just want to graduate. I just want to start residency. I just want to finish residency. I just want to become a consultant. Like we're always moving the goalposts. We're always thinking like, when I graduate, then I'll be happy. When I start residency, then I'll be happy. When I finish residency, then I'll be happy. When I start earning this amount, then I'll be happy. And if you live that way, you'll never be happy, because you're never achieving the goal that you're setting for yourself. You're always moving it further and further down the road. And so I would say for anybody, international, national, medical student, biology student, whatever you're doing, I think it's really important to listen to yourself. And if you're hearing that voice inside of you that's saying, hey, I need a break, like I'm not happy, I'm not successful, I'm not doing the best that I can do, I'm not my best self, I'm feeling really lost, I'm feeling very unmotivated, I'm feeling not productive, I think it's really important to listen to that voice and take a break, whether it's for a weekend that you just don't study and you don't touch a book and you go and see your friends and you say yes. You say yes to going clubbing, you say yes to have a coffee, you say yes to seeing your family, because we always say no. I have to study. No, I can't see you. No, I have to study. No, 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 no. Say yes. And if it's more than that, if a weekend's not enough, if a week off isn't enough, think about taking a month, take a semester, take a year, take 2 years, take whatever you need, but really listen to yourself, because the thing that we don't appreciate is that you have to be good to take care of other people. If you're not good yourself, if you don't take good care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. And we spend so much time thinking about other people, thinking about our patients, thinking about our grades, thinking about medical school, thinking about whatever, that I don't think we really think about ourselves. Like, how are you doing? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about how is your mental health? How is your physical health? Are you going to the gym? Are you getting outside? Are you eating healthy? Are you eating 3 times a day? Like, are you doing the basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Are you fulfilling your basic needs every day? Or are you just thinking about other people? Because that, I think, is a really easy trap to fall into. So I would say that is the most important thing. And also, there's nothing shameful about taking time off for yourself. It's honestly admirable, and it'll inspire people around you to do the same. If you show that you care about yourself and that you're going to prioritize yourself, your health, your mental health, your physical health, all of that, it will inspire your friends to be like, oh, you know what? I haven't been doing so well either. I think I'm going to take this weekend off. Or I think I'm going to say yes to that vacation and not study for, whatever over Christmas break or whatever it is. So I think it's really amazing how if you take care of yourself, it creates this ripple effect where then you start taking care of other people better, and the people around you will start to take care of themselves much, much better as well.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I could see a dog walk around. I could see a dog.
Yeah, she's
What's the name of the dog?
her
What's the name
name's
of the dog?
Poppy.
Oh, amazing, amazing, amazing. Spanish dog, right?
Yeah, yes, she is.
Right. So this is the last question, Cali, and you've been amazing thus far. So this is the last question, and thank you so much for answering these questions correctly and dropping some amazing nuggets for the audience to grab something off it. So the last question goes this way. How has your international perspective improved your understanding of medicine? How do you plan to apply this to your future medical career? And what advice for them also?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say that being an international student has very much changed my perspective on healthcare and on my career, because it's opened so many doors for me, and it's made me realize that I can go anywhere. Like you really, like, as a doctor, I had this thought growing up in a family of doctors that you like work for a hospital or you have a consult or whatever, and you're sort of tied to that place. Like you have your group of patients and you sort of like live in one place and practice in one place, and that's kind of like your life. And it wasn't until I went to medical school abroad that I realized like you can do the most insane mix and match combination of education like that you can think of. Like I did my high school in the United States, medical school in Spain, doing residency in Ireland, practicing in Spain, practicing in Greece, practicing in Italy. Like you really can go anywhere that you want to. Like wherever the best opportunity is, that's where you should go. And so that's what's really been mind opening for me, is to realize that you really should follow the opportunities wherever they are. So if you find that this medical school is like a good match for you, whether it's, in the UK or in Spain or in Europe or, wherever it is, go do that. It doesn't mean that you need to practice there. It just means that that's where you can get your education from. And then if you want to do residency somewhere else, go do that. Apply to residency all over the world and apply to the best residency programs where you feel like you're going to be the most successful and where you're going to be the most happy, and then do that. And then if you want to practice somewhere that you're going to make more money, or you feel like you'd have a better opportunity to, treat patients and be a bigger help to that system, go do that. Like you don't have to stay in one place. You really should follow the opportunities wherever they are and allow yourself to have that international mindset, that expansive mindset of I am okay, like I am my own home, like I'll be home wherever I go. I'll make friends wherever I go. And so I'm going to find the opportunities wherever they are and follow them. So whether that means doing medical school in Spain, medical school in Ireland, medical school in the UK, practicing somewhere else. I think something that's really important to note is that if you get a medical degree from anywhere in the European Union, you can practice anywhere in the European Union without having to transfer your degree. So you can graduate in Spain, go to Ireland, go to Italy, go to France, go to, whatever, apply to Switzerland, go to Germany. Like there are a lot of options, and it's a very common thing to do for medical students, is to see like where is there a need for doctors? Where am I going to have the best experience for residency? Where am I going to have the best pay? Where am I going to be valued as a professional? And go there. Like you don't need to stay in a situation where you don't feel valued, where you're being underpaid, where you're not feeling like you're, if you don't like the country, if you don't like the weather, if you don't like whatever, move. Like go somewhere else. It's okay. There's opportunities everywhere. And it's so important to kind of open your mind and open your heart to just like going wherever you feel needed and you feel like would be a good match for you.
Thank you so much. This is the last phase of the session, Cali. So thank you so much for giving us the best answers ever needed in those questions. And so before we wrap up the session, what are your last words for the audience for wrapping?
Yeah, I would just say if you guys have any questions, if anything that I said resonated with you, please send me a DM. My DMs are open and I love to hear from you guys. I also have a one-on-one schedulability. So like if you want to just talk to me about like, you want to go and study abroad, or you're studying abroad, you want to do residency abroad, or whatever stage and, place you're at in your education, you can book a one-on-one schedule, one-on-one session with me, and we can talk about all of these types of things. So feel free to do that. And I would just say, like, if you find somebody on TikTok or on Instagram or whatever that resonates with you that's studying abroad or whatever, just send them a message. Like, it's really amazing how in the medical community, we're so open to helping people and to helping each other, that I've found that when I've messaged people on social media about like, hey, you're studying in Ireland, I want to do residency in Ireland, could we talk? Messaging, professionals on LinkedIn about like, hey, I'm thinking about being an immunologist, could you tell me about what it's like to be an immunologist? They're overwhelmingly going to say yes. So I think it's amazing just to like build up that confidence to ask people around you, like, what is their experience? Can they help you? Can they give you some insight? Because most of the time the answer is going to be yes.
Yeah. So Thank you so much. So content, do well to subscribe, like, comment, and also share to your network. Hopefully this can help someone. Be an expectant of my next video. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Hey,
thank
thank you,
you.
Cali.